Do you think that encourages other farmers to cooperate when all of a sudden, one of their friends get their farm shut down like that?
Somebody needs to take this bull by the horn, somebody with some power, someone with some authority.
A shutdown at Nature Fresh Farms in Leamington because of nearly 200 positive cases of COVID-19, shining more light on the crisis in the agri-food sector and raising questions about what happens next. Here's a live look at our tower cam, a sweltering day, around 31 degrees right now, around 37 with the humidex. And there is a heat warning in full effect, and that is expected to continue until Sunday. Colette Kennedy will give us a full rundown of the forecast later in the program. I'm Katerina Georgieva. Thanks for watching. Chris is away tonight. The local health unit's decision to stop all employees at a large greenhouse operation from working is generating growing concern. The town's mayor worries that this will serve as a disincentive for further testing, and others wonder what this will mean for Canada's food supply chain. The CBC's Jason Vio has more from Leamington.
CBC News has been able to confirm that Nature Fresh Farms here in Leamington, one of Essex County's largest greenhouse operators, cannot currently allow its employees to work. The health unit issuing that order after 191 employees here tested positive for COVID-19 recently, and that represents about a quarter of the total cases among farm workers in Windsor, Essex since March.
I understand where the chief medical officer is, but do you think that encourages other farmers to cooperate when all of a sudden, one of their friends get their farm shut down like that?
I think they've just sent a message. You send them in, we'll shut you down. There was a better way to do this.
But those political opinions are at odds with what Ontario's chief medical officer thinks.
And you put more staff at risk by not closing it down. But by closing it down, taking remedial action very quickly, you might have the opportunity to open it up again sooner.
And Leamington's mayor went one step further, saying she's angry that nobody appears to be taking the lead on this crisis.
No one is willing to take responsibility here and step up. We need one entity to step up. My God, it can't be us. We are the municipality. We have the least bit of control and the least bit of power.
Nature Fresh Farms didn't return our requests for an interview, but Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health says those workers who tested positive are in hotels. Now the Ontario Greenhouse Vegetable Grower says it's assisting to try and find replacement work from locals to keep the crop from dying.
Certainly it's a high priority for us, and we hope that could be done. But I think if we do see multiple farms impacted in a small region, then obviously it becomes less and less of a practical solution.
And this has implications on Canada's food supply chain that cause concern, even more so if this type of shutdown happens at more farms or greenhouses, and it's something shoppers may have noticed already.
Some of which have reached the consumers with regards to pricing on the shelf. So I think we are all very concerned to see how this will roll out.
Now, Leamington's mayor fears officials will never get to the root of the problem if there's a threat of shutting an operation down looming overhead, unless, she says, there's mandatory testing. Jason Vio, CBC News, Leamington.
Earlier today, Premier Ford was asked about some of the fears migrant workers might be dealing with and how some are feeling so precarious in their jobs that they're avoiding being seen by medical professionals. Here's what he said when asked whether he believes that this indicates that there is an unacceptable situation in this region.
Well, first of all, we have the translators down there, but we need to get a hold of them to speak to them. We're Canada. We aren't some third world nation that you have to run from the authorities. We're here to help you, not to hurt you. And I don't know what's been communicated to them through maybe the farmers, maybe someone else. But we're here to help them out and get them healthy. That's the number one priority. The rules apply to them like they apply to any worker in Ontario. They're protected. They're protected under labor laws. We're there to protect them, not to throw them underneath the bus. And I got to help the farmers. But we need everyone to cooperate and get moving. If not, it becomes a stalemate. So we want to get things moving forward, and I'm sure everyone will come around, hopefully sooner than later. It's critical we get the food on harvest and into the stores.
The fears of migrant workers are compounded by the fact that not all of them are here legally. Last week, the province introduced measures to protect foreign laborers. But as CBC's Jonathan Gatehouse explains, undocumented employees are falling through the cracks.
It's an open secret around town. Advocates estimate that there are at least 2,000 undocumented workers in the area. Farm laborers who aren't here on official government permits, hired instead via temp agencies and fly-by-night recruiters who shuffle them from farm to farm, taking a big cut of their pay. Rogelio Munoz Santos, a 24-year-old from Mexico, died after testing positive for COVID-19. He came to Canada on a tourist visa. This man worked with Rogelio in a greenhouse. We're calling him Juan to protect his identity because he too is undocumented. Their jobs were arranged by a Canadian recruiter, their wages paid in cash, their safety overlooked. We started to get sick, he says, all of us. We knew that we had the coronavirus. Some of their final days together were spent living in this motel in Leamington. They abandoned me. They never gave me anything, he says. Same with Rogelio, they also abandoned him. This undocumented man is from Guatemala. He came here on a temporary foreign worker permit, but when it expired, he stayed. We're protecting his identity because he's afraid he'll be deported. In the past month, he says he's worked at 4 or 5 different farms.
Are you frightened that you might get sick?
No, at the moment I'm not scared, thank God, because to me it doesn't exist so far, he says. Around 1,000 workers have tested positive so far on farms, but this number tells us little about the health of undocumented workers, a group officials know about but can't seem to reach.
It is a different level of barriers for those who are not currently documented as workers here, and so their assumption is that this type of testing is not available to them.
Testing is available for everyone, but undocumented workers fear that coming forward could mean being deported. And with families back home depending on their wages, for many it's not a risk they're willing to take. Jonathan Gatehouse, CBC News, Leamington.
And joining us now is CBC reporter Jonathan Gatehouse. He's in Cambridge, Ontario. Jonathan, in your investigation, you were able to have conversations with numerous undocumented workers. What was the common thread that stood out for you and what they told you?
Yeah, I think the common thread that really stood out for me was fear, concern. You know, these are people that are here in the country, and many of them arrived legally with permits in the first place. Those permits have lapsed, or they've come in on tourist visas and taken jobs. What they fear most is deportation, being sent back to where they come from, because they've left behind families who really are counting on the income that these men, and it's mostly men, are making on these farms. And so it's not so much, you would think, it would be more fear of the coronavirus, but really it's more fear of being put in a position where they have to go out, they have to seek health care, and maybe end up being sent home as a result.
Now, as for recruiters and temp agencies bringing in the undocumented workers, what do we know about them?
Well, again, I don't think these are people who are bringing in the workers per se. These are workers who are making their own way into Canada. But what we do know is that these recruiters are out there and they're using platforms like Facebook to recruit people once they've come into Canada. It's a fairly well-established process. Some of the people that we have spoken to have found jobs via Facebook. They're told that arrangements are made and they are ferried down to the Leamington area. And what happens once these workers get there is that they're very much tied to these kind of fly-by-night companies. It might be just one guy with a cell phone. These recruiters are the people that arrange where the people are living. They arrange the work. The farmers are paying the recruiters directly, and then the recruiters are taking deductions for things like accommodation and food and transportation, and then paying the remainder in cash to these undocumented workers.
So this is certainly shining a light on all these issues. So what is the Ontario government doing about this?
Well, the answer is so far is not very much. I mean, last week we all saw the 3-point plan that Doug Ford unveiled to try and address the COVID outbreak amongst migrant workers, with a lot of testing on farms being the primary aspect of it. Now, the problem with this is that undocumented workers don't live on the farms like the documented workers do. They mostly live in rental accommodations in Leamington or Kingsville. And also, they're not going, often in many cases, they're not working at the same farm consecutive days. What you see is some of the workers that we spoke to are working at as many as 4 or 5 farms per month. So it's very difficult if these gentlemen have no relationship with the farmer to speak of, to think of how they're going to be tested.
Thanks, Jonathan. The CBC's Jonathan Gatehouse. And you can read Jonathan's full article on our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. Students in Windsor are speaking out about the anti-Black racism they faced in Windsor's schools. Recently, the Public School Board announced that it would be developing a policy aimed at tackling racism. In response, CBC News heard from a number of students and parents in the Black community. The CBC's Sanjay Maru spoke with some of them, and he joins me now live. Sanjay, what are they saying?
Well, Katerina, the overarching theme from everyone I spoke with suggests that Black students experience unequal treatment and disproportionate punishments compared to their white peers. Take 17-year-old Natisha Archer, for example. She recalled times when teachers would be quick to tell her to stop talking during class, while white students who did the same thing were allowed to get away with it. But one incident, which she calls the last straw, ultimately led her to leave her former high school after just 1 year.
I wore my hair wrapped up, and I didn't think it was a big deal because it's a part of my culture. And the teacher was like, you have to take that off. And they're like, if you don't take it off, we're going to bring you to the principal office. And I'm like, for what? Like, I'm just have my hair wrapped. Okay, sorry. I grew up in Jamaica where people of my skin tone is the majority, so I've never experienced racism until I came here to Canada.
Now, that incident Archer talks about at the start there led to her being sent home for the day from school. She said it made her feel belittled and discriminated against. And it's a feeling that's all too familiar for another student I spoke with who says he's faced unequal punishments between him and his white peers at his former school.
Black kids, a lot of them come from the West Side, which I live. And they assume, just because it's less affluent than other communities, that, oh, all these kids are juvenile delinquents. Oh, we have to make sure, they don't do drugs. We have to be on the tails as much as possible. I don't do that stuff. I'm not a criminal.
Sanjay, what kind of change do people in the Black community want to see moving forward?
Well, Katerina, both students say more Black history needs to be covered in school curriculum, from the contributions of notable Black figures to the origins of racial slurs. But the parent of one student says change needs to start at the systemic level. She says starting in kindergarten, her daughter was treated as an outcast for her hairstyle and skin color. It got to a point in grade school where her daughter was actually assaulted by another student. But when she pushed her attacker back, she was the one who actually got suspended. A perfect example, she says, of why zero-tolerance policies need to be re-examined.
If teachers or principals have active stereotypes, biases, right, preconceived ideas, etc., then it ends up exacerbating the existing problem that they set out to solve. And so we know that Black and Indigenous students have a disproportionate amount of the zero tolerance policy enacted against them.
And she goes on to say there that school boards need to put less emphasis on these zero tolerance policies and instead put more time and effort into establishing safe spaces for students of diverse backgrounds so they can share their experiences of being discriminated against with someone who looks just like them instead of being made to feel like an outcast for years on end. Katerina.
Thanks, Sanjay. The CBC's Sanjay Maru reporting live. Police in Ottawa arrested an armed man on the grounds of the Governor General's residence, Rideau Hall, early this morning. The man had a gun, but no one was hurt in the incident. The Governor General was not home at the time. The Prime Minister and his family, who have been living in a separate house on the grounds, were not home either. Hilary Johnstone has the latest details on the investigation.
RCMP say they were called to the area around 6:40 this morning. An armed man managed to access the grounds at Rideau Hall. He was arrested without incident. A source told CBC News the man drove here from Manitoba. He had a long gun and a note with him, and he's an active member of the Canadian Armed Forces. It's not known what was written in that note or what type of long gun was found.
Around 9:40 this morning, we watched as a small autonomous vehicle, which looked a bit like a robot on wheels, approached a dark pickup truck, which was about 75 meters into the grounds away from this gate.
The robot removed items from the vehicle, including a cooler and boxes. Then officers and sniffer dogs moved in. There was visible damage to one of the wrought iron gates leading to the property and a heavy police presence, which caught area residents off guard.
Seeing an awful lot of police Mounties heading at high speed towards downtown.
I just saw a stream of RCMP vehicles coming down the parkway. First it was cars and then the armored vehicle and what looked like special equipment trucks.
How were you feeling as you were seeing all this?
I'm a little anxious, actually.
Rideau Hall is the official residence of the Governor General, and the Prime Minister has been living at Rideau Cottage. Both of their offices say neither one of them were on the grounds at the time of the incident. Rideau Hall is normally a major tourist attraction, but it's been closed because of the ongoing pandemic. Hilary Johnstone, CBC News, Ottawa.
A man has been charged with criminal negligence causing death and criminal negligence causing bodily harm in a deadly mishap involving a farm tractor he was driving. 3 children were killed and 7 other people were injured last night, about 55 kilometers southeast of Montreal.
There's nothing anybody wanted to see. That, it affected a lot of people, and ambulances have to come back after to get some adults that probably were witnesses to the scene to take him to the hospital for a shock there.
Police say 10 people were riding in the bucket of a farm tractor. Somehow they fell out and all or most of them were run over by the tractor. The children who died were aged 5 and under. Police say no other vehicles were involved. Another live look at our city, and if you were outside today, you likely worked up a sweat. It was hot out there. Colette Kennedy will let us know how long we can expect the heat to stick around for right after the break. Colette Kennedy joins us now for our full weather forecast. Colette, I decided to have my lunch outside today. I sat on a picnic table, but boy, oh boy, was it hot. It felt like something I was braving to do.
Yeah, I said, what, did you have any shade for that for your picnic?
I put myself right out there and let the sun shine on me. Yeah.
Full on sun. Oh, well, good for you. You know, it feels kind of good today, but, you know, by the time we get to, 5 days out of this, because we're going to be seeing it for a while, then you might start to think, where's that shade? Because we are looking at a heat warning, and this is going to carry on. So the dry conditions are going to prevail, and that's going to maybe start to get trying. So I thought this would be a good time, again, to just go over the heat exhaustion, those symptoms that we do see. I know today's high, just 31 degrees. That's not that extreme for southwestern Ontario. But, hey, just a reminder, some dizziness, a rapid heartbeat, headache, or you start feeling a little bit faint. Those are all signs that maybe you need to kind of take it easy, sit down, get into the shade, get some water, and just sort of look after yourself, okay? Because we are looking at this heat warning. You see it's just right across from southwestern Ontario over towards the nation's capital. Our highs from 30 to 35. Humidex values there, maybe even into the low 40s. We'll be seeing that. And then the overnight lows are even into the 20s. They're around 20 at least, and sometimes in the low 20s. Our current temperature, there you go. It was high for the day. It's still sitting at 31. The Humidex value at 36. Chatham-Kent as well. And then in terms of what's going on, any action has really been well over towards eastern Ontario. There have been some severe thunderstorm, not just watches, but some warnings with some active cells there. Well, as I take you through to tomorrow, morning hours are looking fine. A little bit of cloud cover. You can see that there, especially over towards Sarnia. And then into the afternoon, we may see a few cells kind of blowing up. So some pop-up showers, thunderstorms, a little bit of lightning strikes through here too. So that'll be something to watch. Again, most areas will actually stay dry, but we'll see a few areas with some active weather. And I have to tell you that tomorrow, really looking into the long-range forecast, that's about the only day where we have the good potential for it, and it's only really a 30% chance, and then we have just a string of dry days that we're looking at. So at this point, the heat warning goes to about Sunday. It may well get extended. I mean, I see this kind of pattern going into next week, easily to about next Friday, likely, in terms of what we're going to be seeing with that heat warning. Our temperatures, there you go, overnight tonight, 20, 21, with generally clear skies, and then tomorrow afternoon, that Humidex value going up to 40. Our dew points have been in the high teens. They're going to start to pop there into the low 20s. 32 will be the actual temperature. And then Saturday, Sunday, full-on sun. Your picnics there, you'll be trying to find that shade. And then look at those temperatures. Yeah, they're going to be going up there to the mid-30s, Katarina. And those Humidex values popping into the low 40s there. So
lots of water, lots of shade. That's basically the moral of the story.
Yeah, it really is. And like I say, this is going to be for an extended period of time. So here we go. Hold on.
Everybody's got to stay safe. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
And in just a little bit, we'll bring you the latest development in the investigation into the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein. An arrest has been made. We'll have that story when we come back.
CBC Gem.
The FBI has made an arrest in the ongoing investigation into the sex crimes of Jeffrey Epstein. This morning, 53-year-old British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell was taken into custody in New Hampshire. Stephen D'Souza has the details.
Good afternoon.
For all the years convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein preyed on young girls, Ghislaine Maxwell was at his side. Many of the victims accused the British heiress of taking part. And today, prosecutors charged Maxwell with playing a critical role in luring women for Epstein.
Maxwell enticed minor girls, got them to trust her, then delivered them into the trap that she and Epstein had set for them.
Prosecutors say Maxwell would befriend the girls, one as young as 14, take them to movies or shopping, and was often present and took part in the abuse.
She befriended the innocent, attempted to normalize sexual abuse, and worked to put victims at ease, aware the entire time of the abuse that would follow.
Prosecutors say Maxwell went into hiding last year after Epstein committed suicide in custody. She was tracked down to a sprawling property in New Hampshire. Maxwell is also charged with lying under oath, denying she knew Epstein was with underage girls when questioned during a deposition for a civil lawsuit in 2016.
Maxwell lied because the truth, as alleged, was almost unspeakable.
Epstein and Maxwell traveled in well-connected circles, and a number of high-profile names have been linked to the disgraced financier. Among them, former President Bill Clinton, lawyer Alan Dershowitz, and Prince Andrew. Prosecutors wouldn't comment on who else may be linked to their investigation, but did repeat an invitation to Prince Andrew to come in for questioning.
We would welcome Prince Andrew coming in to talk with us. We would like to have the benefit of his statement.
One of Epstein's victims released a statement today saying she can breathe a sigh of relief and that Maxwell's arrest means some justice for survivors. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
Flying has become more of an ordeal during this global pandemic. There are fewer flights, mandatory masks, and more restrictions. But for those pining for the journey, one airport in Taiwan came up with a way to simulate the experience. At the downtown airport in the capital, 60 people chosen at random from about 7,000 applicants were allowed to go on a pretend vacation. They were handed mock itineraries at check-in, scrutinized by passport control services and security, and then allowed to board. The flight was going nowhere. It was a promotional opportunity to show off renovations at the airport. More fake flights will be held in the coming week. It is 6:29 p.m. That is it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for our news anytime, you can check out our website, cbc.ca/Windsor, and we're on social media as well, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Power and Politics is up next. Have yourselves a wonderful evening.